Making the Invisible Visible, Black Women 365 Days of the Year. Each day will spotlight a remarkable woman whose story has shaped Black, British or global diasporic history. Women whose achievements are too often overlooked. Through these daily short films, we create a living, breathing archive of leadership, creativity, resistance and legacy. Let's begin.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Oliver, and I'm a choreographer and a performance studies scholar. That's the work that I do. I'm also a mother and a wife and a sister, and hopefully an active community member. That's how I see myself. My work is centered around acknowledging Black genius. I have made it my business to help us recognize what already exists in our culture, in our practice. Sometimes we don't recognize it until someone else does. And I work towards making us more aware of the things that we do in every day that are brilliant and beautiful and creative and genius. I've spent quite a few decades making dance theater works that highlight the Black female experience, particularly from a Caribbeanist perspective. I'm from the Caribbean, and it is close to my heart. The way that we think, the gestures we make, the utterances, the environment that we inhabit and how we inhabit it has always been home for me and precious to me. And so my artwork has been about highlighting those aspects of Caribbeanness and Black womanhood. So that's what really drove me for many years. And then in more recent years, as I've gotten older, I have expanded that a bit. As I said, I'm a mother, so my interests also started to shift towards the environment that my son, was growing up in. But my interest has been around Black culture and what we do that is precious and that generally saves the world, that is not often recognized. I have been majorly influenced by the work of Black women playwrights. For many years, I worked as a theater artist with the playwright and actor Laurie Carlos. And Laurie Carlos comes from experimental theater tradition. She was part of the original for colored girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow is enough. She was part of that original cast on Broadway, off Broadway with Ntozake Shange, and so they were very close. But I remember one of our theater productions, it was called White Chocolate for My Father. And it was a radical piece. It was about the genealogy of her family, and starting with like the last ancestor on the continent, and then what happened to the future generations of women once they hit US soil. So I played two roles in that production. I was the African ancestor who showed up as a spirit, a white spirit light, and I was a junkie. And at the time, I was a young person going through all kinds of kind of spiritual questions, and I'd been brought up Catholic, but something about it wasn't right for me, in part because I had absorbed and accepted the idea of a hierarchy, that as you get towards nirvana or you work as a good human, you ascend to heaven, or somehow you become better than those who have not done that. And so I'm reading through this, and it just didn't make sense to me that this African spirit who had this high kind of value in the work would come back, would reincarnate as a junkie. And, I talked about it with her. I brought it up at the table. She said, "You think the spirit is better than the junkie." And it, that struck me, and I hesitated. And then I had to own it. I said, "Yeah, I think you have to ascend to, these kinds of roles in the spirit world. And she looked at me. She said, "No one is better than the other, and we all have something to learn from each of these roles." And I sat with that for days. It shook my world. It shook my spirit, and it completely changed the way I looked at the world after that. I have a couple of really close friends who I value the time we spend together. I am a homebody, so my home is a space of comfort and joy. My husband is a brilliant cook, so he cooks, I clean, and we have this really luscious home life that restores me, restores us, and I spend quality time with others that I love. That's what keeps me going.
Thank you for joining us for today's story. Making the Invisible Visible is our commitment to ensuring that Black women's histories and contributions are recognised, valued and kept in daily circulation. Across 2026, we will continue to share these powerful narratives, 365 days of impact, brilliance and inspiration. Stay connected, join the conversation and help us champion the women whose journeys continue to shape our world. I'm Paulette Brooks and I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow for the next story.